Professional.
Booyah, Michael.
Yeah. Hello, Thomas.
Welcome.
Thank you. welcome a second time to the
Well,
podcast,
welcome to the dungeon.
to the recording studio slash messy bedroom where I sometimes do drugs. No, what I was touching on was like, I grew up in a really punk background, you know what I mean? So like my cousin's really into the punk scene. My other cousin is like has a huge love for music and like introduced me to stuff like the Misfits and whatnot. And so just like growing up through all of it, like I kept this real mentality of like growing old is mandatory, growing up is optional. Like you can stay with like that childlike jovialness, and I always saw like the professionalism and the like I'm real prim and proper. I have to be serious. I'm 30. I'm like, oh, blow it out your ass. It's the worst. It's so bad. I'm like, I'm gonna go chase butterflies and pick up a lizard, and like I'm gonna crop dust you and like run around and be a moron and play guitar and do art, and like you only got one shot at this. Why am I gonna sit around and be like, oh, what if people don't like me? I'm like, people are always gonna not like you. You can't please everyone. You might as well at least please yourself.
Yeah, literally and figuratively, right?
Yeah, both. That's why they make fleshlights. It's that reason. They're like, you just please yourself. You know, you can get them down at the store. They're not that expensive. Change your life.
Yeah, I haven't tried that.
Stop a mass shooting. Donate a fleshlight.
Oh my god.
You can't get
Okay,
bitches.
so-
They make them at the store. Sorry. All right. I'm done. Tone it down.
So punk background, because I didn't like. I guess my exposure to that would have been like, I like skated a little bit when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and like listen to Blink-182 and stuff. But I know
As
that's
one
very
does,
different.
Pop punk resurgence of the 90s.
Yeah, but that's different. I feel like than like the lifestyle and the embodiment of that. I don't know. To me, punk feels anti-establishment.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's dependent. I feel like, realistically, what I get out of the scene is, like, I always tell people, they're like, oh, well, I wanted to go to a punk show, but I'm scared. And I'm like, you gotta realize is that, like, as much as, like, punks will, like, puppy guard the front end and be like, this isn't a welcoming scene. I'm like, it's not welcoming to some people, right? Like, definitely, I mean, like, if you're racist, I would say no, but, like, Screwdriver exists. So, like, there is a neo-Nazi punk, but, like, don't get into
Right.
that. But, like, generally at the front gate, like, what we're puppy guarding is, like, misogynists, racists, like, child abusers. We try to keep that out of the scene, but I'm like, you're also being actively welcomed into, or you're being welcomed into active violence, right? Like, the punk scene is not, like, it's a very welcoming and loving and supportive place, but, like, it's not in the sense that you're used to. It's not like, oh, you know what I mean? Give us a hug. We all love each other. It's like, I'm going to elbow you in the face in the pit, and then later we're going to get a beer, and we're going to laugh, and then we might beat up a dude who tries to touch somebody inappropriately, and, we might smoke some pot under a bridge or break into an abandoned house. It's just kind of about being, like, nomadic. That's always how I viewed it. It's like a really rough nomadic tribe. But all the people I've ever met in the punk scene are, like, well, I would say they're really nice people, but that's not true. But I think they're nice, so that's what matters, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like the idea of everyone has their flaws, and like what am I willing to accept with my group as far as the rough
Yeah.
edges.
Yeah, it's a come as you are thing, and people think it's got to be like an outfit or something. And I mean, I have my battle vest and whatnot, and I would show it to you. I have no idea where it is. It's disappeared for a while, but I have all that stuff, but at the end of the day, it's like you have people that look like you in the punk scene. I've seen plenty of people that look exactly like you, Thomas, like with glasses, a pocket protector, and I'm like, do not get near that guy in the pit. That guy will fucking murder you. Like, he's here for your soul. Like, I'm gonna go get after it with him, but, like, you maybe not. Like, I'm ready to
Right.
die. If you value your life, stay away from that guy, because he's here with a pocket protector and a button-up at, like, a knocked loose show, and he is throwing the hardest elbows you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, so talk to me more about moshing. Like, what? I mean, because this sounds like a central part of the experience.
Yeah, so from my understanding, moshing is a little bit of punk history. It's my only area of expertise in life. Not true, I like to say that. It's the only one I give myself. So apparently, from what I've heard, moshing is a terminology that came from a Bad Brains concert in the 70s, which is a DC punk band made of like it's an all-black DC punk band. I believe they're Rastafarians. Don't quote me on that. Someone might kill me for that one. But really good punk band either way. Super prolific in the DC hardcore scene. And during a concert, the dude has like a heavy accent. Their guitar player, I think it is. And he was trying to tell people to like mash together. And it came out because of like the Jamaican accent is mosh. And so that's where the terminology comes from. There are three main styles I'm familiar with. There's like a push pit. There's four. There's a push pit, which is just like it's fucking chaos. You're going to be shoving people like you're bouncing off of people, right? There's a circle pit where you just run in a circle and shove people. Those are my favorites. There's like two-stepping hardcore pits, so that's closer to like metal. With bands like Kubla Khan and Knocked Loose, and you're going to be in there doing what's called a two-step, which is basically like a kick. Like it's almost think of like shuffling if you're familiar, but like kicking your feet out, and you're going to move your body and just start like wildly swinging like elbows and fists and feet if you can do spin kicks, and you're going to get hit, and it's just what we all expect. You know what I mean? Like there are plenty of videos you can stumble across of some dude like thinking it's okay to have a beer in the front of the crowd and turns around and just catches an elbow right, like beer and all in his face, and you're like, and he's just like, and I'm like, that guy's just mad he lost a beer. And then there's crush. There's the crush. So the crush you might experience at a concert, even not a punk concert. It's pretty prevalent in bigger shows where the crowd will crush forward. That one I don't like because that's how people die. But there's also the metal community has what's called a wall of death.
The wall.
Which I like
I've seen the wall of death.
Yes, and that's a crush pit. And you know, I am. Being the glutton for pain I'm always the psycho in the middle that's like hit me, crush into me, that's what I want. Like, so yeah, and it's fun.
It's fun. The thing of the wall one, to me, when I looked at those videos, it was thinking that it seems like only the front line are really taking the damage.
Oh yeah,
right? Like if you're 3 layers behind, you're not really getting that crush, I would imagine.
Yeah, you would think that, right? But, like, the first wall is going to have, like, the brute hit, and they're going to fall back. I think the worst place to be is in, like, the third or the fourth row. I think the third or the fourth row, you have everyone from, like, the 7 or 8 rows back from you crushing into you and pushing you, and the first 4 rows falling back into you. You're, like, you got to be a madman to be in the middle of that. That's the worst place to be. That'd be terrible.
So what is it, like, what do you think it says about human nature that these things exist recreationally?
Well, so like in general, like my love of moshing, right? Like I was always an angry person as a teenager. I got into a lot of fights, lashed out, whatever, and like, you know, punk rock saved my life in that sense, which is something you'll hear in the community a lot of, like that ability to mosh and know you're like safe. I mean, like you're not like physically not going to be harmed, but like if you get like fucked up in a pit, 9 times out of 10 someone will pick you up, someone will help get you out of the pit. They'll get you out of harm's way. Like, people usually at smaller or medium-sized shows don't get crushed. You might get stepped on once, but, like, I skinned my knee in a Pennywise pit when I was 13, and, like, the second I hit the ground, my glasses flew off my face, and, like, I had, like, 4 arms pick me up, and then just a hand slam my glasses on my face and throw me back into the pit. Like, I touched the ground for, like, half a second. So, like, the idea is just basically like the music's already like energetic. It's already like kind of like violent in nature. It's real fast paced to get your heart rate up. And like, so the motion and the letting of aggression is like really cathartic, like in a meaningful way. Like I always feel way better. Like I can go into a punk show with a bad day and I know I'm going to like hurt people, but I'm not going to hurt people deconstructively. I'm going to hurt other people that are okay with it. And then we get out of it and we're all fine and we're like, we had a great time and I feel way better. And so it's like, I think what it says about society in general is like that there needs to be a release. You know what I mean? Like you can't, like, I think it honestly shows more sophistication than a lot of people would give it on the outside, because they would just go like, oh, it's a bunch of kids running into each other and punching each other and shit. And it's like, no, it's a group of people who are like angry and who decided, like, I'm okay with getting hit. Are you okay with getting hit? And they're like, yeah, we're cool with hitting each other. And you're like, yeah. And then you hit each other, and you're like, cool. And then I don't hit someone like you that's like, I'm good because you upset me because I'm naturally angry, and I know that. I think it takes a lot of levity to be like, I'm going to go into this situation with a bunch of other, like, fucking killers, basically, and, like, just have at
Yeah.
it. Because, like, you know, you're going to hardcore shows. Like, you got gangbangers doing security. Like, there's a real intertwine between, like, the lowest form of society and punk. Like, I was friends with homeless people. I've been friends with gangbangers, everybody, because of this scene. And, like, it says a lot that, like, the bottom bands together for, like, a catharsis so that we can function as people and we're not just, like, tearing shit up.
Yeah, hell yeah. I see a lot of parallels to the rugby I played, but there's not quite the same acknowledgement of, like, we're all hurt or we're all needing a release, and this does it for us. It's more like there is very similar, like, you know, we're gonna go like try to smash each other, and like there may be a fight, but afterwards we'll all socialize and be friends.
Yeah, same idea.
But there's not the like, it still is kind of wrapped up in this. It feels like very like machismo sports environment.
Yeah,
you know, and not that like direct acknowledgement of like, yeah, like we're all people who need a release, and this is why we do this.
Yeah, this is just primal. I like fast, loud music, and I want to hit things, and so I'm gonna do both of those things at the same time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, man.
So,
no, I mean, yeah, that sport thing as well is like it's really arguably super similar, but like way more like looked fondly upon. And I think it's because you guys don't break into house to play sports.
Right. Yeah, that's
like
the
we
thing.
definitely get into housing developments and like bring a keg and we're like, the power's still on. You want to do a house show? And we're like, yeah, and then we cause property damage. So you know, it's like
right. So when you're there, and I also am that type of person to where like I have a joke, like my friends like always make fun of me, like Tom's the guy who'll like show up with like a homeless person at the party who just met.
Yeah, hell yeah.
You know, and like I think it's like for me it's a mix of seeing the humanity in everyone and actually trying to like just see someone for who they are, not how they appear. You know, and you were talking about how society, like there's a lot of themes of like discarding or like judgment of like this sanctioned group is okay, this other group is dangerous, or like you know, don't go there, kids. Like you don't want your kids to do that.
Unwanted. Stay away from the punks, kids. They might have you huff airplane glue and have a good time.
Oh my God.
God forbid. You know, maybe not the first one. There's straight edge people. All right, I'm not one of them, but yeah, you know, some people go do that sober, and God bless them.
That's the real hardcore. I feel like if you're doing that shit,
they are psychos.
Sober, that is full psycho.
Look, I love my straight edge kids, and as I always tell people, and I like the skins too. The skinheads are nice people. You know, terminology difference. A racist skinhead in the punk community we normally call a bonehead. So skinheads are a working class Rastafarian movement. On the onset, it was people that cut off their dreads to like not be considered Rasta. It started in Jamaica, and then got its second wind in England, and then came here. And so skins are usually called them sharps. Skinheads against racial prejudice. Anyways, yeah, no, the straight edge kids are psychos. My only 2 cents with them is like I'm old, dude. Like if it's an all ages show, I'm going to bring in a beer. Don't beat me up for it. I'm not going to give the kids beer. I'm not going to offer you beer. This is my beer.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to share. I'm not going to share. You came to an all ages show. You could have brought your own beer in. You straight edge kids, stay away from me. I want to drink. You know, I need to get in that pit, and you know, it's like karaoke. I need 2 beers to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I read there's this book, Diary of a Recovering Skinhead. There's this guy, he was in Philly, and then he got some cousin out in like the country, like middle PA, got him kind of radicalized, and then he ended up being a leader of like the Northeast. This would have been a bonehead because they weren't the sharps. They fought the sharps. So,
yes,
and he got
they get down.
And
if you ever want to see a gnarly fist fight, that's. Sorry. Anyways, heroin. I interrupted the hell out of you.
No, it's okay. Yeah, so I that's how I'm familiar with that. But yeah, like so stupid. Like so the thing I've noticed, like say like these like the boneheads or like the racist skinheads. Is it just? Do you think it's true? It's just the in-group idea of like I wasn't safe as a kid. I never felt safe. I didn't have a family. These people look like me. They keep me safe. They give me something that I need. psychologically, and so that I get radicalized. Do you think that's...
Yeah, so there's a lot to do with the pipeline, actually. We're getting into a really interesting topic, so I tend to, just as like a background, I tend to try to ingest as much differing viewpoints to my own as I can. So I've read, like, books by KKK leaders and stuff. I've skimmed through the David Duke book. I read religious texts. I read stuff that's on my side. Noam Chomsky and stuff is what I normally consume just in general.
Mein Kampf over there on your bedside table.
Yeah, you wish. And you see a McDonald's cup and Lord of the Rings is what you see. I'm a fucking nerd. No, I actually haven't gotten around to reading Mein Kampf. I've read the Communist Manifesto a couple of times. But anyways, so this idea of like radicalization, right, in a pipeline is like really enrooted. It's the same problem you get in gangs, right? You go like, I don't have a family, and these people are like, we'll protect you, and they do that, and it's like, little do you know, you're being fucking manipulated. Like, you're being manipulated into being a foot soldier, right? What's the first thing they ask you to do in a gang usually? It's like, fucking kill someone you don't know. Like, bro, I don't need family that bad, right? And I was raised in an environment that was like, my cousins, William and Sam, are 2 of 14 brothers. They know none of their brothers. Wow. All the other 12 brothers are Sareños, and his dad is a high roller in the Sareños gang. So, like, when I was young, it was always taught, like, if you can't stand on your own 10 toes, you don't deserve to stand. Like, you should not have to call for anybody. You don't need anyone looking out for you. Like, you look out for yourself. So I think, like, that radicalization comes from a point of, like, being afraid. And it's like these gangs and, like, even in some senses the boneheads are, like, actively harassing these people, first off, and then are basically like, oh, hey, we won't fuck with you if you join up. And I think that, like, radicalization also has to do a lot with, like, not exposing yourself to other ideologies, right? Like, keeping a closed, like, right, like, closed minds are the breeding ground for radicalization in either way. Like, and I don't just mean to say this on the right. Like, you can see this with, like, the super far left, like the communism pipeline, like the radical communism pipeline is the same as the right's, like, fascist pipeline. It's like hanging out with a group in an echo chamber, not exposing yourself to anything else. Be like, this is close to my ideals, so I'll go there. Or like, these people are like me. And you go there, and then you just get bombarded with this shit. And you never go like, I wonder, like, maybe there's something else. Maybe I should, like, expand my ideas or, like, at least try to understand what other people think that I don't agree with so I can combat it. And you just get sucked into the pipeline. Religion's the same thing, right? You get that with Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses, I've talked to them. So I try to get all my religious texts from people of the church, and then I will talk to them. And my only agreement with them is, like, I will read your literature if you will read my literature. Now, granted, your boy pulls a little fucking sneaky, and I give him stuff like Atlas Shrugged, or For Whom the Bell Tolls, or, Catcher in the Rye, or How to Kill a Mockingbird. Like, I'm not being honest. I know, I'll give them a lot of texts that make them question humanity and, like, what it means to be human and treat others in a way. So it's like, yeah, you're never going to indoctrinate me. Like, this is what I read, but I'm going to make you read Ayn Rand. Like, that's just going to happen. So I think that pipeline really exists in the sense of, like, a wanting to belong, because we are a social creature, right? Like, we want to fit in. You want to be a part of something, right? Like, if you're completely ostracized, like, that's the worst thing to be as a human being.
Totally.
So I think, I think that
death, right? To not be connected.
Yeah, absolutely it is. It's total isolation. You wonder what's wrong with you. You start to, like... I was actually listening to your podcast with, who's that gentleman a couple of weeks ago? Damn it. I want to say it's Rob.
The Masculinity Action Project guy?
Yes, and he had said something to that line. I mean, granted, it's what, Yoda said, too. Fear leads to the dark side and all that. Which I thought was a really good callback. You didn't catch, but I was like, all right, cool. But the point is like, he has a point. Like, when you are ostracized and you have no outlet and you can't talk to people, and people can't be like, yeah, chill, that's excessive. Or like, I understand what you're going through. It's like you start to turn towards fear. And once you turn towards fear, you turn towards anger. And that's a road I know, because that's why I used to fight people all the time. Right? Like, I was ostracized by my dad, and like, I couldn't like talk to him or connect with him in a meaningful way, and I didn't feel like I was the son he wanted. So and then like, he threatened me, so I was like afraid of him. I was afraid of his scorn and his physicality, and that brewed up his anger, and that started having me just lash out at anyone I could get my hands on, right? Like, so I think there's a lot to be said about that pipeline. There's a lot of thinking to do in that I think, you could do 150 podcasts about thinking about the human psychology of what makes someone get into not only a gang mentality, but be like radically indoctrinated. Because most of those racists usually end up getting out of it, and the story's almost always the same. Like when they finally sit down and talk to someone who's not white, and who takes the time to be like, hey, this is bullshit, and if you can give me 15 minutes, I want to talk to you. Like, and someone who doesn't call them stupid or anything, who's like, hey, you know, I understand why you got here, but this is how you're being lied to.
Yeah, that's what Toby said. Like I think it was curiosity, not correction, kind of mindset of how to break through those people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So it seems like the root of it then is childhood, right? That's like so integral. I had a psychologist on who he does like specifically sex addictions, but the root of it is like the inner children and the inner child model, and like you said about how, you know, the relationship with your dad and the whole standing your 10 toes thing. So if you were to have kids, how would you approach raising them? Like, what would you take from your upbringing, and what would you change in how you kind of raise them?
Yeah, so I mean, this is something I think about a lot. Like, I'm not super huge on having kids. I'm kind of a devil may care about kids. I'm like, if I get someone pregnant and they're like, I'm keeping it, I'm like, all right, well, I'm here for it. And, you know, but I'm not trying to get anyone pregnant.
Right.
In general, I've helped raise a lot of my nieces and nephews, and what we do technically in this, like, generation of the family, like my cousins included, is we are very, like, hands-off. We view the child as sacred, right? Like, that exploration and that wonder in the world, it's like, for us, the mysticism of a child is not lost. It's like, you just, like, that thing you used to do in your sock, you did that into a person, and there's another person. Like, that's wild, dude. That's fucking crazy. That's a human. That thing's going to grow up and start talking shit. That's what it's going to do. That thing's going to drive a car one day. That's wild. Like, and so this understanding that, like, you just kind of, like, basically all you're there to do is be like, nah, let's not play with the chainsaw, all right? Put that down, buddy. Like, that's basically all you're there to do. Like, don't kill yourself, all right? But, like, you know, if they want to dress up like a ninja and shoot Nerf guns or whatever and break some shit, it's like I can replace all of it. So we're very, like, hands-off in the sense of, like, especially for me, what I would change is, like, I definitely wouldn't hit my kid. I got switched by my grandma, which I don't hold anything against her for that. You know, she was raised in the 40s, and she raised me the first 12 years of my life. And, like, I understand that, right? Like, I accept her for who she is, and I still love her to death, you know. And it didn't happen frequently, but, like, you know, my dad, this might be trauma dumping, but whatever, I'm at peace with it. My dad broke a plastic oar over my head for, like, rowing, like, rafting when I was 8 for saying yes, ma'am to him. Like, he just smacked me in the face with an oar. And so, like, that kind of violence is, like, I don't want to perpetuate that, right? Like, I want to understand and, like, a kid to me is, like, this is a human, and it understands me just the same way you would, right? So, like, when I sit down and talk to a kid, like, all I'm doing is, like, okay, like, let's work through your feelings. I used to do this with my nephew, because my sister has her own issues. That's not my business to talk about, but it manifested in her treating her kids as, like, I'm going to spank you every time you act out, right? My nephew would act out, and he would go tear up his room. And I would go in there, and I would let my nephew hit me in the face, punch me, throw stuff at me, right? And I'm like 19, 20 at the time, and I'm like, okay, like, sure, it hurts when a 5-pound Nerf gun hits you in the face, but, like, I'm not going to take it out on him, right? Like, he's frustrated, he's lashing out violently, right? He's like the Kraken out of the sea. He's like,
rebounding.
Yeah, he's just fucking it up, right? Like, he needs some time. And I can understand that. And so I, like, let him hit me, and he, like, cools off, and he's crying, and he's like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done all that. I'm like, that's fine. Like, let's talk through it. Where can you accept responsibility in this situation for the actions you did, right? I'm not saying what your mom did was right, but all you're responsible for, and this is forgiveness 101, all you're responsible for when something bad happens to you is how it makes you feel. Because you have to understand that anyone else in that situation that had reacted that way to that person, almost always the same thing would have happened. And if you're trying to heal, you have to say it always would have happened no matter what, right? Granted, in certain situations, if it was a 6'6" dude that was jacked, my sister's not hitting that dude with a sandal. But for the sake of forgiveness, whether you're 5 or whether you're 50, no matter how you look, no matter what relation you were to her, in this instance, if you were a child in that area and you had reacted that way, that would have happened to you. So how did it make you feel? And that's what's important to internalize. That's what really, like, brought me through my healing journey, healed me through my trauma. And, like, it's how I've always tried to raise the kids in my life. It's like, let's have that childlike wonder. Let's go explore. Let's go catch fish. Like, let's go down to the creek and, like, you know, throw dirt clods at trees and, you know, just get, like, buck wild, Huckleberry Finn style, have fun, play in the mud. Like, we can clean up later. Like, you know, but when it comes down to, like, doing stuff, it's like, let's handle our business. If we get it done now, it's done. If you get upset, let's talk about it. Like, let's just work through it. Because I feel like that general understanding of, like, masculinity and being like, you got to be mad and you can't talk about your feelings and we don't cry. I'm like, fuck that, bro. I cry at the end of What Dreams May Come every single time, like clockwork, when Robin Williams comes into hell to find his wife. I'm like, oh, I'm crying, bro. Like, no, we cry. And I'm like the toughest person a lot of people know. And I'm like, I will bawl, bro. I'll bawl. Howl's Moving Castle? I'll cry.
Same, dude.
I don't care.
I was at my buddy Lee's wedding, and I was crying when he read his vows to his wife, you know, because it was just so heartfelt and incredible.
Cry.
Like, you know, like, so side tangent, but I was thinking about weddings. I think, like, weddings are a celebration of the individuals, right? But it's more a celebration of the love between them.
Yeah,
and I think for everyone also experiencing it, like, it reminds them of the love they have in their life, right? That's what I feel like. It gives me, like, a shot in the arm of, like, feeling positive about love, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely, dude. Like, life is a fucking beautiful thing, man. It took me a lot of years of depression and wanting to kill myself to realize that, but, you know, I'm on the other end of it now, which is nice.
Awesome.
But it's a fucking beautiful thing, you know what I mean? Like, there's some real wisdom in, like, you know what I mean? Take some time to, like, sit in the sunshine and pet your cat. Like, that seems like such simple advice, but, like, I give it to all my, like, depressed friends or people that are going, I'm like, just go outside and, like, sit in the flowers for a while and, like, watch a bird. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because you're going to realize, like, all this shit that's built up around you, all the stuff that's making you depress society, it's all human construct, man. And at the end of the day, you only got one shot at this mug, so, like, get after it. Enjoy yourself. Go sit in the woods, you know what I mean? Maybe you'll catch a deer drinking out of a pond or something. You see some fucking absolutely magical shit. Like, really just be present in your own life. Don't get swept up in all the chaos of everything you got to do or, like, everything you need to be. Like, you are just you. You're doing exactly what you need to do. You're existing. Like, you know, you're the universe experiencing itself, my man. Take a pause. Go get a beer, smoke a joint, sit in the motherfucking woods. You know, maybe you could pet a possum. They play dead. I've pet a few. They're lovely creatures. They're lovely. Give them a grape. They'll be happy when they wake up. They're stressed, you know.
But back to your cousin, I think that's amazing, man. I think, like, again, I think about, like, the childhood experiences and how important that is. I think, like, you giving him that release in that moment could have prevented, like, years and years of downstream agony, right?
Oh, yeah, my nephew, yeah. He's super respectful now. He's a super easy kid and super chill. And, like, you know, it's weird when people see him interact with me because he's, like, one of the only people that, like, he says I love you to. And I'm like, yeah, it's because I fostered that relationship. Like, you know what I mean? This kid is, like, just like me. He's got the same, like, he's like me if I talked less and the things that came out of my mouth were dark and cutting when they were funny. Like, that kid he will sneak diss you so hard it'll ruin your whole day. But, like, besides that, like, and he only does it if he loves you, but, like, super respectful kid. Like, I've seen that kid, like, when no one's looking, like, I'll, like, pull into the Walmart parking lot next to our house. I've seen him walk old ladies across the street. I'm like, I never told him to do that. I just told him to be helpful, right? Because I think he understands that levity from me putting it in him. Like, we built everything around us, and we are the change we want to see. Like, you might not be able to affect the entire world, but you're able to affect the world around you in super meaningful ways. Like, just by helping people and being kind and, you know, trying to be a little bit respectful to the people that aren't doing anything. You know what I mean? If you're having a bad day, like, check yourself. Like, if someone's being a jerk, call them out on it. Like, just be a person that's being active in their own life and trying to not cause harm.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're getting at is waking up, right? And
Yeah.
also, like, just the whole thing about, like, giving a shit about your life and not just accepting the day-to-day and getting lost. You know, I think that's why the whole mindfulness lifestyle, I think, has value, because for me, whenever I check in as, like, meditation or breathing, it kind of reminds me, like, oh, yeah, like, my life is more than just the responsibilities and the things I have to check off today.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, in the next, like, 16 hours or whatever. Like, and not losing sight of that. But yeah, man. Yeah, that's awesome to hear you. I completely agree on the expression and not bottling it up. I mean, that's the whole premise of the show, is that it's like so futile, man, to try to just pretend that problems don't exist. And I don't know, I feel like it may be a generalization, but I feel like kind of what you're saying, like there's kind of like two groups of like men, perhaps. It's like the ones who have like kind of gone through that and see the life on the other side, and the ones who maybe haven't yet, or haven't been exposed to the idea of there's a different way to live, or you know, haven't opened their mind to it potentially.
Yeah, and there's a lot of grappling to do with like toxic masculinity, right? Like I was introduced to that in like 2015, 2016, and I was like, man, it's bullshit. And then I started looking into it, and I was like, actually, there's some validity in that. Like, that's a lot of, like, what's wrong with dudes. Like, it's just don't, like, dude, just, like, imagine for a second, like, just take a second if you're listening in to, like, think of yourself on your deathbed and, like, in your final moments. And not in, like, a bad way, but, like, if you were to reflect back on your life, like, did you tell the people you cared about you loved them enough? Like, were you honest with how you felt? Like, your life is, you will often say your life is too short not to do, like, the coolest shit ever. I'm going to go to Spain, like, you know what I mean? I'm going to go to Thailand and go on a ladyboy tear. Like, I'm going to go dooning and fucking, you know, the Sahara. I'm going to go whatever. It's like, did you ever think for a second, like, I'm going to go tell all my boys that I love them, and if they're, like, gay, you're like, don't do that. Like, I love you. Why would I be here if I didn't? You know what I mean? Like, it took me so long to, like, instill that in my friend group and with my family of, like, every time I hang up the phone on someone, I'm like, I love you. I do, really. I appreciate your existence. And sometimes they'll be like, whatever. And I'm like, fucking say it back.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
that's when I let the toxic masculinity take over. I'm like, fucking say
so
it back
funny.
or we're going to have a problem. And they're like, okay, I love you. And I'm like, yeah, I know you do. I'm a miracle. Like, have a good day. Don't ever do that to me again.
Yeah, dude. I do it, too. I do it as, like, I'll say it to my friends and like, this is true, but also kind of to fuck with them and like, because I know the ones that'll be uncomfortable and like,
yeah, where they're
put
like,
off by it.
Like, what, you got a problem with love?
Yeah.
The hell's wrong with you?
Yeah, what the hell's wrong with you? Seriously?
Yeah. You can say it to the girl you've been dating for a year and a half, but you can't say it to me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I've known you for 16 years and you can't say it to me. I'm sorry. Did she help you at 3 a.m. when your tire was flat 50 miles outside of town? Oh, no, that was me?
Right.
If you don't love me, why am I helping you with your tire?
Did she, like, talk you through when you were shitting your pants and vomiting at the same time?
Yeah. Was
No,
that was her?
Me.
Oh, no. Oh, that was me. Oh, okay. But no. She packed you a lunch one time, and she pets your hair.
What?
Like, okay,
what?
dude.
She lets you fuck her? Like...
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to. Yeah. What? So do I have to fuck you? Is that how I get it?
Is that...
Do you want some head? Just say that. I just want some validation.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Yeah, no, seriously, it's the weirdest thing with dudes where they're like, "Well, I'm not gay." I'm like, you don't have to be gay to love me. You're not in love with me, bro. You're not like, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, twirling my fingers through your beard and whispering sweet nothings in your ear as we lay in bed on a Saturday morning and I look in your lovely blue eyes. You're just being like, I love you and I appreciate you as a person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're not romancing me, fool. Like, totally cool with making gay jokes with each other, but the second you're like, I love you, they're like, ew. And I'm like, okay, dude, that hurts, first off.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did I not buy the Metallica concert tickets and provide all your food and beer, and you can't even give me an I love you? You're about to Uber home. That's what's about to happen. Oh, you forgot your wallet? Looks like you're walking. Say it back.
Dude, that's interesting, though, that you kind of consciously introduced that to your family. Was that, like, that's a leadership quality, right? So was that the tough thing to do, or like how did you have any self-consciousness around that originally?
Yeah, I mean, like a little, dude. You know, I had the fear of rejection that they wouldn't say it back or that I would be ostracized. But like, I started it, I guess, with my cousin William, because he was kind of the person that I've talked to a lot about this, and yeah, you know, he's the one that was like, basically, we had a whole conversation about masculinity and what it means to be a man, because there's a lack of trial of manhood in like American culture. And that basically brought me to my viewpoint that, like, what makes a man? It's like, well, are you over 25 and do you think you're a man? there you go, you're a man. If you're under 25 but above 18, you're a young man. If you're under that, you're a boy, you're a child. 17 is not a man. But you know what I mean? It's like, so he was the first person I started saying it to, where I was like, I love you. I really appreciate that, like, you spend your time with me and you talk to me, and I feel like you treat me as an equal and you want to, like, show me things, and I, like, really look up to you, and I, like, model my life around a lot of what you do, right? And it was just this, like, shot in the dark, like, I'm sick of, like, every time I look at him and I'm like, that's my cousin and I love him, and I don't say it. I was like, oh, God, like, is it gonna go? I'm like, just do it. Just do it. And he was like, I love you too. And I was like, that felt really nice, right? And then I started doing it with my other cousin, which took some time. Every time on the phone, I love you too. All right, see you later, bro. And I was like, and then after like the fifth or sixth time, I was like, are you really going to hang up on me and not say you love me? Like, that cousin that I did that with was the one that named me Michael. Like, my mom wanted to name me something else, like Hunter or Colton, and he was like, don't do that. He's going to get bullied. Name him Michael. I'm like, you gave me my name, and you're not even going to tell me you love me. You were the third person to hold me in this world, and you don't love me? And he was like, don't do that. And I was like, say it. Like, I'm not getting off the phone.
You're the one not doing it.
Yeah, I know. Like... And he was like, yeah, and he was like, fine, I love you. And I was like, no, like, you fucking mean it. Like, think of me as a baby until now, the progression of my life. And he's like, I really do love you. He's like, you could be extra sometimes, but I love you. And ever since then, every time on the phone, all right, I love you, brother. I love you too. All right, have a good day. Like, so I always tell people, I'm like, just put it out there, and, like, you know what I mean? Like, if your boys, like, roast you about it, or your family roasts you about it, like, just be like, don't do that to me. Don't allow yourself to be disrespected. Like, put yourself out there, and then, like, what you have to do as not just a man, but, like, as a person is, like, not allow yourself to be disrespected. Right? If they're like, well, whatever, bro. You're like, don't invalidate me like that, first off. Like, that's really extremely rude for how much we've been through and how much I care about you. Like, I'm here all the time for you, and you can't even tell me you love me. Like, I know I love you. I got a ton of love for you. So it's like, why can't you tell me that? And it's important to tell people in your life that.
It is, and it's important, too, to acknowledge, like, what they're doing by not saying it back. Because it's like, I think, again, like, this whole thing circulates around not being able to verbalize impact and how things land and what it does. Because if you just let it go, then they probably would just, like, essentially it's probably not conscious, but essentially they're prioritizing avoiding discomfort over actually validating the existence, the humanity, the love they have for someone who's important to them. And that's a bad trade. Like, that's not what you want to do.
No, embrace that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. But, dude, I also think, so, like, the trials of manhood, are you talking about, like, rituals or kind of rites of passage? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, so we had watched that thing about the people in the Amazon sticking their, like, hand in a glove full of bullet ants, like, 3 times, or, like, you know, the Spartans kicking their kids out. We had just been reading about that a lot, so we talked about it. And, like, yeah, there is no trial of manhood. Like, really think about it. And you can be like, oh, it's going out and forging your own way. I'm like, I didn't do that till I was 28, so there's not a time for it. Right? We're not Jewish. We didn't, you know, read the what is it, the Torah text or whatever, have a bat mitzvah. Like, we don't have a trial of manhood as just American society. It's just like whenever you recognize yourself as such, people recognize you. And I think that leads to a lot of longing because, like, you're like, well, am I a man? Am I a good man or whatever? And it's like, well, realistically, homie, that's up to you and the people around you to decide. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, are you a drunk? Do you just come home and do nothing and, like, you know what I mean? Don't spend time with your kids. Don't treat the people around you that you say you love right, whether, you know, it's a man or woman in your life, whatever it is. Like, are you abusive to the people around you? Do you loiter your power? Like, because if the answer is yes to any of those, then probably not. You're probably not a good man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think the only thing I took from my dad that I really internalized is something he said to me that, like, sticks with me to this day, which is, like, a man knows when to swallow his pride and admit when he's wrong. My dad said that to me one day, like, out of the blue when we were talking. I can't even remember what the hell we were talking about. Or we were talking about something to do with man. And, like, it was just a car conversation on a drive. And he said that with me. And that has stuck in my brain, like, forever. Like, it's just a man knows when to swallow his pride and admit when he's wrong. And like, that and what else he said, which is that, like, everything that happens to you is your fault. Like, and not in, like, a demeaning way, right? Not like, everything that happens to you, your fault, you're a failure. But more like, you need to look at yourself first before you point the finger at anybody, which is still how I handle every bad situation. Something bad happens to me, I'm like, how could I have moved different? Where was that situation out of my control? Where was it in my control? How could I have reacted differently? Whether it be like, something horrible like getting assaulted, or something mundane like I got into an argument, right? Like, where could I have moved differently, and where did that situation slip from my control? How can I hold on to that and keep it in my control to steer it towards a positive outcome? And like, those two things are like my guiding principles in my life. So like, while I don't speak to my dad anymore, maybe one day, but whatever. Those two things, huh?
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, and like, it's been 8 years for me now. So one of these days, I promised my girlfriend that when she divorces her ex-husband, I'll try to talk to my dad, but that might be hard. I don't know if he'll talk to me, but no, my girlfriend. No, my girlfriend.
You promised when your girlfriend divorces,
her husband, like, she broke up with him, and then so they're getting a divorce. But she was on the fence about it, and I was like, if you do that and file it, I'll try to talk to my dad, because that's equally like...
Because she wants you to talk to your dad?
No, she just didn't want to do it. She was like on the fence about it and was like, it's going to be messy and da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, if you do this thing you don't want to do, I'll do a thing I also don't want to do.
Okay, I got
Which is one of my favorite bargaining chips, is I'm like, I hate myself, so I'll put myself through a ton of stuff. Not really, but you know what I mean, right? Like, I'll put myself through punishment. If it'll get you to do something positive, I'll do something equally hard to meet it. But like, those are the two things that stuck with me. And like, again, I'll repeat them, is that like, the things that happen to you are your fault. Or like, you have to accept responsibility for the things that happen to you. It's no one else's fault. Like, which is take responsibility of a situation, take responsibility of, and like accountability for everything you did wrong until that situation was out of your hand. When did your partner start screaming? That's when that situation got out of your hands. Like, you did something up to that point that led it. And like, don't feel bad about it, but be critical of it. Like, what did I say? What did I do? Did I say something that I knew was going to be hurtful just to be like, I'm going to get a jide in on this person? Like, be conscious of that and correct course later, right? Because you can't change the past. You already did that shit. It was a whole car accident. Like, it was bad. It was black ice on a Texas road, FedEx trucks crashing into each other, family of 5 dead. Like, terrible, the worst thing you've ever seen, right? Like, not good. Don't look at it. It's not, you can't look back and be like, what could I have done? No, you can't do anything. It's on fire now, actually. Just leave. Just leave. Think about it up until that point. Don't look at it again, though. That's bad. Right. And, like, accept that responsibility, and also, like, swallow your pride and know when you're wrong. Because it takes a lot of self-courage to be like, dude, like, you could be like, I fucked up. But, like, to go apologize and look someone in the eyes and be like, hey, like, when I said that thing about you, like, I was feeling like you didn't care about me and I wanted to hurt you, and that was really inappropriate. And there was no like universe where that was the acceptable thing to say to you, no matter how I was feeling. It was short-sighted, it was juvenile, and it wasn't appropriate. And on top of that, just as like a caveat to all that, you should also anytime you're in a conversation with someone or an argument and it gets heated, I think the other thing that is my guiding light is like, if there was a tape recorder in this room and you had to play that tape back of what you just said in front of you and all the people you care about that you hold yourself to, would you be proud of what you said? Would that be an accurate representation of who you are or who you want to become as a person? Because if it's not, like, boy, you shouldn't have said it. Like, really be cognizant of what comes out of your mouth. And that's from someone who says some, like, horrifically borderline fucked up shit. And I'm telling you, like, this doesn't matter. This is bullshitting, right? I could say, like, damn near anything without crossing some social lines, and people are like, that guy's kind of weird, right? But, like, in an interpersonal conversation, if we're having a real conversation, I'm going to knuckle down and be like, here are the things I'm expecting. And talk in I feels. Never accuse people. That's the other thing. Never fucking accuse people. Never be like, you're belittling me. Don't do that, because that makes people get defensive. Go, when you speak to me like that, I feel like you're belittling me as a human being, because that then makes your emotions known. As a communication tool, those two, imperative. So just like, take responsibility for your own actions. Like, swallow your pride and admit when you're wrong, when you know you're wrong, right? If you really feel like you're right, don't. But like, if later you're like, I fucked up, swallow your pride. Right? View every conversation that you're going to have like it's going to be replayed to you and your loved ones in a room. like of all people you care about and respect and don't want to be portrayed in a negative light, and make sure it would be something that you're like, yeah, that represents me. And like always talk in I feels. Those are like some of the most important communicators, and like those are really going to be the things that when people look at you, they're like, you know, at your eulogy, they're going to be like, this dude was a fucking solid dude. Like he really, really cared about people and really cared about like how he presented himself, regardless of all the other stuff about, you know, whatever jokes you make or whatever, or how like stupid you are in general. Like I'm an idiot and people love me. But like, you know, those are the things that people are going to come to you. Like that's when you're going to be the person your friend comes to when they're suicidal. You just doing that when shit gets serious and knuckling down and being like, oh, this isn't a joke, I need to be serious, and doing stuff like that, and like trying to work through problems and talk with people and like be there and be cognizant and be present in conversations when they matter. Like you will eventually be the person that might save someone's life that you care about, and like that's super important. Also, people more willing to listen to your problems, and that's always a good thing because you always need a sounding board. Even if you're the rock in your life and you feel good about that and you want to be the rock in people's lives, like, you know, not Dwayne Johnson, but, you know, Gibraltar.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, the sea can crash into you when you're unmoving.
Name.
Yeah, rock the Dwayne Johnson. I always say it wrong on purpose, but like those are going to be the qualities that like people do that, right? Like try to live a good life, man. You know what I mean? You want motherfuckers to be like, this dude with his shit, and I'm really mad. We have to put him in the ground at your funeral. That's what you want,
dude. I want to have a banging funeral. It's gonna be a fucking party.
Yeah, I want my body to be ejected out of my casket, like with confetti, and I want to put the youngest child of the family in front of the coffin, so my corpse just falls on them and they get trauma, and maybe, just maybe, they'll turn out as good as me. Just one real traumatic event to just really solidify it of like a life or death moment. Not really, but you know, I'd prefer to be shot into the ocean.
That'd be sick.
That would be tight. Like a clown at a circus. There he goes. Bye, Grandpa. Naked, too. One last hurrah. Yeah, scar at least one person before you go out, you know, unintentionally.
God,
just fly over a nice wedding and you're just old man wiener is like, their dead body. Saggy balls at someone's wedding photo. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck that was, but it ruined our wedding picture. And you could just you can go greatly into that abyss knowing that you technically didn't hurt anybody, but you definitely did kind of shit on somebody's birthday cake. Take a little schadenfreude, you know what I mean? A little joy in someone else's misery.
Oh my god. Yeah, dude. Yeah, Kendall hit me with one of those just yesterday because we've been both like very stressed out. You know, I'm working nights. We're fucking overseas, like off
in the
schedules.
Philippines, yeah.
In the Philippines and shit. And so there's a lot of stress. And her sister came for a visit, and I was out of town. And Kendall was basically like, yeah, like once she came, her sister, once they were hanging out, Kendall was like offloading all this stuff and like,
yeah.
And she was like, basically told me that because I've been so stressed, I haven't been able to be the sounding board for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was a big like wake up call for me, you know, because as a man, as her man, right, as her partner, like I never want my problems, my selfishness basically, to be so overwhelming that I can't fulfill my responsibilities as her partner who, you know, helps each other get through life, right?
Yeah.
So that was a big ego. That was kind of an ego hit in some ways. You know?
Yeah, of course it is.
Like I had this idea of like who I am and the partner I am and stuff, and then she was like, "Yeah, nah." I was like, "Fuck."
You should do mushrooms about it. That's honestly, you know, I don't know if is it a death sentence in the Philippines? I'm not sure.
Probably,
Maybe wait till you get back over here. Yeah,
probably,
do mushrooms about it when you get back over. Like that's a huge thing too that I see with a lot of my friends as well. Of like the idea of not being introspective about your relationship. It's like, bro, you forged a pact with another human being. You're like, I'm here, bro. Like I enjoy existing with you. You benefit my existence, and like you have to be like cognizant of that and be like, you know, you're going to be a sounding board for each other, and that's the kind of building is like, I'm going to have to get on your shoulders every once in a while and scramble, and you're going to get on mine and scramble, and, you know, every once in a while we'll be able to climb together, and, like, I think that's really important is, like, understanding that, like, oh, shit, I'm super stressed, I need some time. Like, to be able to have that cognition and be like, dude, I had to do that with my partner recently. I was like, I'm stressed with all this work stuff and school, and like you're stressed about going back to school, and I'm like, I had to cancel our Saturday. I was like, no, it's normally Wednesday and Saturday because we're so busy, and those are the only times we can see each other. And I'm like, I'm gonna sit out on the Saturday because like, I'm starting to develop animosity, and like it's not because of you, it's because of me. It's because I'm stressed and I'm not giving myself time. And like what I ended up doing was I still went that weekend. I just took a Monday off of work, and I was like, I'm giving myself, like, I think it's really important to look at yourself in the mirror in the morning and like take a day off and be like, you have full creative control to relax. Like, dude, nothing needs to get done today. You don't need to do anything. Laundry, doesn't matter. If you feel like doing it, do it. Don't feel obligated. Anything you feel obligated to do, push it to the side. Guilt-free day. Like, today is your day to relax and chill. And, bro, I didn't do anything. I sat around and played Stardew Valley and drank beer, and I went out and got hamburgers, walked down to the local Jack in the Box.
Nice.
And, like, watched a movie, and I just did nothing. And I was like, I feel great. So I think, like, especially when, like, stress takes hold of you like that, like, it's really important to, like, check back in with yourself and be like, hey, buddy, how you doing, champ? Like, you cool? Or, are we feeling a little, like, you feeling a little, you suicidal? Like, you gotta, you want to pump the brakes a little bit. You're doing 90 in a school zone right now, buddy. Let's pull it over and look at a flower.
Let's looking real good.
Yeah, let's bring it back in. Let's not drive into the brick wall and instead turn into this park and go on a nice walk and just allow yourself time to like leave your baggage at the door, man. You know what I mean? And like that's
Yeah.
And that's really, that's really good that you're in a relationship where like that kind of communication can be had, but like you have to foster it because communication is king, both in interpersonal relationships, romantic relationships, business relationships, anything. Like communicating honestly is like one of the most important things you can do. Because without it, like, dude, your word is your bond. Like, I know, like, a lot of people have heard that as a joke over the years. Like, my word is my bond. True. But, like, actually, like, I was raised in an environment where it's like your word is all you have. You can accrue money and lose money. You can get a car and give people rides and lose the car. You know what I mean? You could do all this shit in your life. At the end of the day, all you have is your word to stand on. And if your word's not good, what good are you? Like, no one can trust you. If you're lying to people, if you're not being honest with how you feel, like, those are the same thing. I think that's an important takeaway, too, is, like, me being, like, let's get an extreme example, okay? Like, if you were to, cheat on your partner and you're like, no, I didn't cheat on you. For me, that's as bad as being like, hey, I'll be there at 7 and me never showing up. Those are the same in my book. Because I'm lying to you either way. Right, if I hit you at 7:30 and I'm like, my bad, I got ADHD, I totally forgot. Like, super sorry. Like, I'll pay for an Uber. Like, well, I'll try to make it right? But that's still me going on my word and being like, I'll handle this. But, like, any slight in your personal life, whether it be romantically or intrapersonally with your friends or, with your boss or whatever, when you say you're going to do something, like, stand on that because at the end of the day, that's what people are going to expect out of you. If you can be reliable in that sense of, like, and don't, like, overpromise. Don't do that. That's just as bad, too. But, like, be like, yeah, I'll try to be there at 3. I don't know, barring traffic, but I'm really going to try my best. And if I can't, I'm going to call you at 3:05 and tell you I can't be there. Right? Like, and then 3:05 comes and you're there, or you call them at, like, 2:55 and you're like, hey, hit traffic, I'm going to be there at 3:10. You know what I mean? Like, but just always give people that honesty because at the end of the day, like, it sounds stupid because people have heard it so much, but, like, honesty is the best policy is, like, another thing I live my life by is, like, just be honest. Like, whatever you thought was going to happen by you being honest, whatever you're about to do to not hit that outcome is going to be way worse than whatever the hell you were going to experience. Oh, someone's going to be upset with you? Let them be upset. Because later, when they're not upset, they're going to be like, thank you for being honest with me. That's what you're going to get.
Thank you for not bullshitting me, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's very good that she called you out on that and noticed it, and that gives you time also to be introspective and be like, oh, shit. Because that's what a good partner does, or even a good friend. It's like, I've noticed you've been stressed lately. Like, what the fuck is going on, dude? And, like, sometimes that's all you need to be like, have I been? And you're like, oh, when did all this shit get here? Right? You're like, where did that come from? I didn't even notice that. They're like, it's been there the whole time, dude. You've just been throwing more stuff on it. And you're like, I have? That's like 2.5 stories of shit. And they're like, yeah. Why are you carrying that? And you're like, I don't know. I'm going to take a day and get rid of that. Like, God damn, that's a lot of stuff. Like, yeah, I think it's important. Communication is king, man. And being able to be honest with people is really what's super important.
Totally.
That's what actually struck me, to not drag on, but that's what actually struck me from that. I listened to that one with that German lady you had done, the communications person, and she was talking about masculine and feminine communication styles, and I was like, oh, this is super interesting, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess dudes do like, now no questions, and it's like, and I was thinking about that, and I was like, that's not a very introspective point of view, right? That's an outrospective point of view. Whereas, like, women with questioning is, like, way more introspective. And I was raised by women. Like, I grew up in a house of 14 people, and, like, out of that 14, 10 of them were women. And so it's like, there's a lot of thinking about what you did, and, like, I'm disappointed in how you acted, and, like, why would you do that? And, like, asking those questions. And I guess that just internalized of, like, don't just always think you're, like, you're martyred or you're correct all the time. Or, like, it's just like sometimes think like if you're like, oh man, I'm bugging right now, I'm like depressed or like I'm angry, like stop whatever you're doing, go outside, sit down for a second and go, okay, Michael, why are we angry? Like just ask yourself that question and think about it. Give yourself 5 or 10 minutes. If someone comes out bother you, be like, not right now, please. I need to think for a minute. Like just give me 5. And like be respectful and like really think and be like, oh dude, shit, that guy cut me off in the morning and like that pissed me off for the day. And you're like, okay. That's good. That's why you're upset right now. You're holding on to that. Why are you holding on to that? Any other day, you would have been like, that guy's kind of a dick, whatever. Like, what happened? And you're like, well, I don't know. I was late on my report. And you're like, okay. Is that enough to make you mad for this long? And you're like, no, if I had missed a report, I'd have just sent him an email. And I did. So what was it before that? Oh, I got yelled at for something. I wasn't doing good at work. And you're like, oh, God, like, I just have all this stress I need to work through. Like, because realistically, at the end of the day, not communicating like that is like, I think the main reason like dudes end up taking their own life is they just feel like there's no introspection. They don't know what's wrong and they have no one to bounce ideas off of. So it's like, start to be that person for people in your life and people will start to be that person for you. People love mirroring people they look up to or respect. And like, you will create like little pockets of you and other people. The best things you can do, fake it till you make it. That's what my grandma said. Like, if you can't, like, really, if you don't know how to do it, just start doing it. Because if everyone else also doesn't know how to do it, you starting doing it will make people start doing it, and you might learn something along the way. And then before you know it, 2 years down the line, you and 4 of your boys are like, hey, man, I'm having trouble in my marriage. Like, like I'm not able to communicate, and I've got, like, all this stuff, and, like, everything seems to blow up to an argument. One of your boys is like, it seems like you guys have built a lot of animosity towards each other. Maybe you should go to couples therapy or talk about what things bother you with each other without yelling, like a safe space, write down a journal or something. You'll get all this stuff. I've had that happen countless times where I'll talk to my boys and they will say something that, like, I had never heard about. Like, just some way to communicate newly with someone and repair a relationship. Because it's so easy to destroy things. It's so hard to keep them in good knack, but it does take effort. Like, it really, really takes effort on both and all parties to keep a bridge up.
Yeah.
And it's worth the work.
It's so true, though, that people reciprocate. And it's subconscious. Like, the patterns of mutual goodwill, mutual trust, mutual support, that stuff just happens naturally. I think, like we're talking about social beings, like that just, the goodness comes out in each other and kind of gravitates towards each other.
Yeah, absolutely. You spread positivity. Positivity will always come back to you.
Hell yeah, dude. Wow.
Not always. Sometimes shit comes to you, but, that's the way it is. Like Forrest Gump said, shit happens.
Dude, you fucking legend. Thank you for a great conversation.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, I'll do top 3 book recommendations for the audience.
Ooh, okay. Number 1's The Hobbit. Out of the gate, The Hobbit.
Fuck yeah.
Read it every year. Worship it. Treat it like the Bible. Number 2, All Quiet on the Western Front. Really good look at humanity and the connection of humanity. Fantastic book. Number 3, I am gonna give you 2. I will give you To Kill a Mockingbird. If you haven't read it in high school, read it. And if you have read it, then I will recommend... I'm going to recommend my favorite Stephen King book, which is Desperation.
I've never read any Stephen King.
I love Stephen King.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Nice, dude. And then I know you have gaming in the past. Do you have any other platforms right now? Any like live stuff people who are interested can go check out?
No, not necessarily. I go.
Not really?
Yeah, no.
Word.
I shit post on Twitter, and that's about it. And if I ever decide to get back into the scene, I'll try to do it. But other than that, man, catch me in the streets of San Jose.
Hell yeah, dude.
Come say hi, be a dude, buy me a beer. I'll sit in a park with you and talk about life.
I mean,
Yeah,
beautiful.
a cheap one, cheap beer, tall can of Pabst, $1.50. I'm not an expensive date. Yeah, not bougie. I buy my own expensive beer.
Hell yeah, bro. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much.